So the three of you are from Baltimore, right?
What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the Trust the Bank first ever live with the viewers. Obviously, myself and Joshua are here. Right now, we have Tadeo and Howard. Tadeo, do you want to introduce yourself? Then we'll go to Howard, and potentially more people could be joining. But how this will work is basically anything that y'all have in the comments, please make sure to ask us. We'll talk about those questions. Otherwise, we'll just talk about, random Raven stuff that we feel like talking about. But today, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yes. First of all, thank you for inviting me to the show. My name is Tadeo Capistran. I am from Monterrey, Mexico, in the north of Mexico. I have been a fan of the Ravens since 2010 when I saw a game with Ray Rice from against the New Orleans Saints, in which he was very good on both running and passing, and then I became a fan of the Ravens. But also, I love what Ed Reed and Ray Lewis do. And I know Derek Mason is the best wide receiver of the franchise for now.
For now, that's the big key. And what about you, Howard?
I'm not from Baltimore. I live here in Florida, Palm Beach County, which is about 15 minutes from a city where Lamar Jackson grew up, Boynton Beach. Sunny Florida today. My wife, my better half, she's taking our niece to the park. So I really like Coach Harbaugh. He had the two brothers, and he was the one that didn't make it, but he did in the Super Bowl. And I will tell the viewers here, I'm a big fan of Ray Lewis. A lot of times over the years when you had quarterbacks like Elvis Gerbaugh and Trent Dilfer, Ray Lewis would be the one, or even the individual who could never get touchdowns when they're in the red zone. That would be Joe Flacco, always settling for field goals. It was Ray Lewis who made this team equal or head and shoulders above the other team. And I really respected that. And I like the Ravens because of those two Ravens and Ed Reed. Because when you had Ed Reed, when this team never had to rely on Flacco to get a first down or to get in field goal range to seal the deal, it was always Ed Reed. You'd hope, right? I'm sure all you guys hope that they would throw his way because you know what's coming? A pick that puts him in field goal range or touchdown. And what really impressed me, and I'll close with this one, was when they won the Super Bowl over the 49ers, and they showed him, I think it was NFL Network, they showed him Baltimore. You saw the look in his face that he loved that city. And I'm saying goodbye to my wife. So. Bye, honey.
Yeah, the only issue with Ed Reed putting us in field goal range and not scoring was relying on Billy Cundiff to make the kick. That was the real scare. If only we had Tucker back then, we would have been really special.
Billy Cundiff is a rich man. He's a pure man, Scott Norwood.
Yes. I see some people are in the chat. I see Engraven's in the chat. I see General Bombs here. Let's see. Hold on. Never really live stream on here. If we can see. Oh, look at that! Wow, look at that.
Okay.
Engraven said, loving the Ed Reed. What's up, Joshua? Not Joshua from the show. But then we also got General Bombs in here. Welcome everybody. Well, we're basically going to be talking about is whatever y'all. If y'all ask any questions, doesn't even have to be exactly Ravens related. It could be NFL related. Heck, NBA playoffs are starting today. I think they've actually started about an hour ago. Heat Bucks are playing right now. But we'll talk about whatever. But if nobody's asking questions, we'll just be talking amongst ourselves, and y'all can enjoy. And I haven't seen any questions yet, so right now I'll just kind of start off, and I'll ask everybody how the draft went. Besides Joshua, we've talked about it plenty of times. But Howard, I'll let you go first. What are your thoughts on the draft?
Tell you the truth, they lost a lot of personnel over the off season. And I think, as I asked on Engravens and yours earlier, I think what they're doing is they're going for a long term. They're talking about, you're looking at a team like the Browns, they want to win now, all right, because they're so tired of losing. They've gone through the revolving door quarterback. So I think what they're doing is brilliant. They got some good offensive line help in the undrafted free agents, as well as the linebacker core. I think, as I said, I think it was on yours I posted, if you look at all the Big Ten performers that they got, it's the brotherly love selections. So I believe that this is going to be a good draft. They're going for the future. And
absolutely.
And with who knows what illnesses and what happened last year, I like this team's future. Maybe this year would be a little bit problematic, but I think they're looking for the second year, third year, fourth year. And I think that this is going to be a bright future for this football team. And it wouldn't have been possible but for the fact that they let those players go. Yeah. And I think it was a positive draft. They got a good receiver to build on. They got a good linebackers to build on, DBs. So I'm looking optimistic, not just this year, we're talking future, i.e.
absolutely
dynasty.
And what was your favorite pick? We could have a question from Engraven. Shout out Engraven. Team Keep It Clean. Everybody already knows Engraven, but if y'all don't, check out Engraven. But Howard, of those picks, building for the future, what was your favorite one?
I'm a big defense guy. So I'm going to say, I can't pronounce his name, the one from Penn State, even though I don't like Penn State.
Odafe.
I can never pronounce his name. But I think a lot of people said he got 0 sacks. I don't think that's going to be a problem. I like him and Patrick Queen teaming up and Forte. I think that's going to be great. Just get me a good defensive end, not the guy who the Raiders got rid of today. That guy who is whatever. But I think that this guy is going to produce. And Harbaugh wouldn't have picked him, but for the fact that his brother told him this guy's going to be a winner.
Yeah. And what about you, Tadeo? What was your favorite pick?
Well, I'm opposite to Howard. I am more of offensive-minded guy, and I really like the Rashad Bateman pick. Of course, he's the most obvious, but I feel that he can be bought as a very good route runner or a 50-50 guy. And many consider him like the guy with the highest floor of the wide receiver score. And I really like his attitude in the mini camps, because he shows that he's a no-nonsense guy and that he's willing to improve, even though many people expect him to be the wide receiver number 1 entering the season.
Absolutely. I mean, he is the guy. I mean, he was my number 1 guy. That's my favorite pick. Josh and I have talked before. Honestly, I can't remember. Joshua, what was your favorite pick? I can't remember. It's been a minute.
Ben Cleveland, Big Sexy. Come on.
That's right. It was Big Sexy Ben Cleveland. Run behind Route 66 or run through Route 66.
Absolutely.
That's the new plan. But next question that we got, I do see Fireline 107 asked what your favorite NBA team is. Mine's OKC, so they're not doing so hot. Well, actually, tank season. I was all in on the tank, but Ravens related question I see is wrong one. Shout out Fireline. This one comes from Joshua. What y'all thought, or what do you guys basically think about the Julio Jones trade? Me personally, I think I made a video on this 2 days ago. I think. Not okay. If we traded for Julio Jones, it would be incredible. I don't think any Ravens fan would be disappointed, or at least I hope Ravens fans won't be disappointed if we trade for Julio, unless it was some trade where it was like we traded Lamar Jackson for Julio Jones. Then it'd be like, okay, no, that's pretty stupid. But anytime you get a top, I think he's a top 3 player at his position onto your team, I think it's a massive victory. Whether or not the Ravens can pull it off is the real question, in my opinion. I have serious doubts about it, but EDC can work his magic. But does anybody have, a take on that, on Julio Jones? Howard, I see, you got the hand up. What do you think about that?
As I said earlier, I'll keep it real quick. 1, how much you going to pay him? 2, what do you got to give up? roster personnel, draft choices. 3, are we talking rent the player or long term? If it's rent the player, they do that in the NHL at the trade deadline. If it's rent the player, you got 2 of those potential, Watkins and Julio, and you're not getting any continuity with the development of Lamar Jackson. You can't have revolving door wide receivers with this guy's development. Then the last 2 points would be, do you think you're going to win the Super Bowl this year? If you don't, and you want to rent the player, then you're wasting time. But like I said, I think this team has incredible potential for not this season, but second, third, fourth, etc. So if you can book him for a long-term deal, and you can book Lamar Jackson for a long-term deal, you give him a star receiver and watch what happens. They'll put points up on the board.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, look at what did the Cardinals do for Kyler? Mm-hmm. They saw they had not a lot of, shout out Larry Fitzgerald, legend. But, their wide receiver core was nothing special. He came and he performed well with the, kind of low end wide receiver core. Then they brought in one of the best wide receivers in the league for, a second round pick. And they gave up what was thought to be an untradeable contract from David Johnson. And then they get him and he absolutely balled out. He helped Kyler so much for that. Like, I think anytime you have a chance to really bring in a super special weapon, I think it's, you got to take that opportunity if it's possible. It's just whether or not the cap space can work, convincing guys to restructure, all that type of thing. I see a funny question from D. Friend. He says, scale of 1 to 10, how attractive is Marlon Humphrey? I saw him at the horse race at the track. That man's an 11. That was the best looking dude in that full purple suit with the nice hat. Gotta respect it. That was top level.
Marlon was out there like Superfly, man. He looked good. You got to look good when it comes to Preakness. Come on, man.
Absolutely. That's the way to look at it. That was a good looking suit. I got to respect that.
Hey.
Let's see here. Got a bunch of questions. Let's see here. All right, here's an interesting one. This one comes out. Shout out AJ Torres, Chiefs fan, was on the show talking about the Orlando Brown trade. But why don't we all just go? We don't have to give reasons why, because I think we know the reasons why. But what numbers does everybody think the Ravens should retire? For me, I got 4 players. I got Ray. I got Ed. I've got Ogden. And I really want to throw in Suggs. I think that, we should retire Suggs' number, but that one's iffy for me. I'm a bit iffy on that one. But Joshua,
okay.
What do you think?
Hey man, just like my Mount Rushmore, I would say Ogden, Ray Lewis, Reed, and I'm going Jamal Lewis. Those some of the guys that started up this franchise and being what it is. You talking about two guys on the defense that led us to giving us that name of being that smash mouth defense, and then you talking about an offensive tackle, one of our first offensive selections, and then you talking about a running back, a big guy that y'all didn't think that had wheels, but that man had wheels, and he'll take you for that ride, and he'll get you touchdowns, and he'll help end the game for you. So, most definitely.
What about you, Tadeo?
Okay, well, the four that you mentioned, and I want to add another one that many are forgetting. Number 73, Marshall Yanda, because you have noticed that he has been a consistent Pro Bowler since he went to the Ravens, and also we should appreciate what Marshall Yanda did for us, because remember that he retired in 2020, and we really were affected in the offensive line because of his absence.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very true.
Absolutely. He is not somebody I'd be disappointed in if we retired his number. What about you, Howard? What numbers are you putting up in the rafters?
Here's a bizarre one. Art Modell moved the Browns from Cleveland to Baltimore.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a general manager named Ozzie Newsome.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know how that would work. Because the Brown, how that would work. I know that seems bizarre, okay, but Ozzie Newsome was I mean, he was a fantastic player and a great general manager. So who's going to retire his number? It's got to be this the Ravens organization, because they moved from I tell you, they did a great thing. They moved from the mistake by the lake to Baltimore, which is pretty cool. Okay, and they got
that
out
would
of that.
that would be awesome. I mean, the rage from Cleveland would be off the charts if we were just like, he played for you, we're retiring his number for us.
Yeah.
But like, what are you doing?
That's almost like us saying that we got to retire Johnny U and Lenny Moore's numbers.
No.
Nobody.
No. You
They
know
went
why?
to Indianapolis.
They went to Indianapolis and they kept the identity.
Okay.
You see?
Okay.
So Indy
They
can't.
took everything.
Right? And then there was one other. I just forgot the receiver who was great for them. Oh, man, for the Ravens. Gosh darn it. His brother died. He was
Torrey Smith.
Torrey Smith. And the other one that
Derek Mason?
The one that went from, and I just forgot their name. I was thinking, on that Ozzie Newsome thing. And the one who was fantastic for them, a clutch receiver. He went from one Harbaugh to the other to San Francisco. What was his name?
Anquan Boldin.
Anquan Boldin. Yeah.
Anquan. I wouldn't be mad at it. Anquan wore 81, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah, 81.
Let's see if we can get Lee in here. Lee's loading. We'll see if he can get in, if he can start talking. Man, there's a lot of questions in here.
I love it, man.
Let's see in here. Shout out to all of you asking questions. Let's see here. Let's see. Here we go. This is from Fireline. Who do you think will be the worst record this season and the best record, and what will they be? For me, Detroit is horrible. They will be. Hopefully, there's no Detroit Lions fans in here, but they may be the worst. This may be worse than the roster that went 0-16. Like, this is a bad football team. 2 wins at the max, I'm going to say, for Detroit. They will surprise me if they win 3 games, which, I would be pretty surprised. But best team, I don't know. I haven't looked at everybody's schedule. Overall best record, probably. I mean, the safest answer is the Chiefs, just because their division is not as good. The really good teams in the NFC are, they play in tough divisions and they can't win a lot of games because of that. So I'll say the Chiefs are the safest answer, and I'd say 14, maybe 15 wins. 1 loss in week 2, though. That's all that matters. So that would be my answer. But anybody have any differing answers?
For the best record, Bucks.
Bucks?
Come on,
no.
We got
You know what? I jinxed them last year. I said I'd be surprised if they made the playoffs last year and they won the Super Bowl. So I'm not going to slander the Bucks in the offseason again.
Listen, I don't like Tom Brady, and unfortunately, we still got to give that man his respect. But watch a team out of the NFC conference slips into the playoffs is going to be the Washington football team. I said it today. Just a simple fact, they're a young team building. If they ride with Heineke, hey man, I can see them boys. Making it deep. Possibly, I can see them maybe second round to the playoffs. I love the battle. I love the battle. The battle in '95. I'm from Baltimore. I'm always a Ravens fan. But when you see Chase Young, you see those guys, McLaren and the young man from Memphis, the running back and all that. They got some pieces over there. They building, and then he just added some pieces too in this draft as well. So, hey man, we got to keep eyes on them.
Definitely. What about you, Tadeo?
Okay. For me, the worst, I wouldn't think the Detroit Lions, but the Houston Texans. They have a worse mess than the Detroit Lions. Deshaun Watson went to get traded. There are many expecting to have the first overall pick and select Deshaun Watson's replacement. And the best of the Chiefs, maybe, but also I wouldn't look the Rams or maybe the Buffalo Bills or maybe even us.
Yeah. Why is nobody saying the Ravens? Yeah, the Ravens. Ravens' best record. Let's be confident. What about? I like those.
We have a chance. We have a chance.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Big chance.
What about you, Howard? Any other team that you think could be in the mix?
I was going to say, I'm going to shock you. Buffalo number 1, Ravens number 2, Chiefs number 3. I think the Super Bowl exposed something on that team. If the Ravens, and I think they could get their head, that's why they need a Ray Lewis type player on this team. If they can get a Ray Lewis type player that's a leader, they could put a whooping and a hurting on the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs realize they're in trouble. The Super Bowl exposed a lot of weaknesses. Harbaugh is a smart guy. I would look at the film, and you got the best scrambling quarterback in football. You got some decent receivers. If you get Julio, who knows what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Worst team, this one's a tough one. I would like to say the Cleveland Browns, the Pittsburgh Steelers, but if you have those, I'd get bashed in my face. So I won't say those. But and Cincinnati, I was watching Sam Weiss say, "Hey, this is Cincinnati. We're not Cleveland." That was the incident where they were throwing things on the field. I watched that yesterday. But no, all kidding aside, I would say Houston, it's interesting. Will they have the ability to pull it together with all the turmoil? That makes them the worst team. If not, it would be Detroit. But I think the Ravens, if you give me 1 second to say this, if the Ravens can hold leads, think about that. They had 4 leads that they lost. 2 of them they won, 2 they lost. If they win those 2 games, Houston and Pittsburgh, they're 13-win season last year. Think about that. Things would have been different, wouldn't it? Holding leads, if they can hold leads, there's nothing this team can't do.
Also, I want to say one important thing that maybe that could lead to the Chiefs fall down. They have a lot of big contracts. Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill. They signed Joe Tooney, and next year they had to sign a big deal to Orlando Brown because they sold the farm to get him. And they have a lot of holes on the defense. And let's not forget that Tyrann Mathieu will probably be cut next year or will not return to the Kansas City Chiefs. Chris Jones is the only good player that I see under defense. And they will not be able to sign defensive players because of the contracts on the offensive side of the ball. And you need both to win, not only defense or not only offense.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, really, how much of their future is solidified, especially on the defensive side of the ball? They got big money in everywhere, but I don't. Obviously they extended Chris Jones, who I think is a monster, but I don't know the situation with Tyrann Mathieu. They got young players in the secondary. They don't really have linebackers that are good. They don't really have many players overall. But shout out to some people joining the stream. I see Donovan. Donovan is in here. I see Donovan. He comments on a lot of videos. So shout out to Donovan. KJ asked, I'm late. What did I miss? Basically, we're just talking about whatever y'all asked. Broad NFL, best, worst record, retiring stuff. Here's a fun one. Who do you think will win the NBA championship from Fire Lion? For me, I had a dark horse team coming into the NBA season. And I'm going with that dark horse team in the playoffs, and that is the Philadelphia 76ers. And I know they're the number 1 seed in the East, but they are not the favorites in the East, at all. It's the Nets are the favorites in the East. I don't know. I like watching them. My hope is the Wizards. They're not going to do it, unfortunately. they're not going to do it. But I like the 76ers against the Clippers in the finals. And I think the 76ers win that. But if the Clippers play against the Nets, I think the Clippers will win that game. So I think Clippers in the West and then 76ers or, the Bucks could do it too. I think people are selling them short, but, fun stuff. Anybody have any other, teams, the popular teams? Josh was a Lakers fan, so.
wherever LeBron goes, I'm going. So back-to-back championships. I see LeBron versus. I can actually see the Sixers making it. I do see Giannis getting stopped in the playoffs by the 76ers defense. Also, let's not forget about Miami Heat. They do have Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, and Mr. Kendrick Nunn, and let's not forget Jimmy Butler in the playoffs. I mean, we seen him in the bubble, and that man went crazy. So, for the East, it's really a toss up. But the West, I'm not gonna say the Clippers, but I definitely gonna say I definitely feel like the Lakers is that that team that's gonna make it because Steph Curry's out. So I'm going with the Lakers.
Yeah, that was a funny exit.
Hey,
no Steph.
I'm still a Washington Bullet fan. Okay.
Hey,
there you go.
Alvin Hayes,
shout out Wes Unseld,
Phil Chenier, Nick Weatherspoon.
Yes.
No, I think I'm going to have to, although I'm from South Florida, I'm going to have to say no to the Miami Heat. I like the Sixers and the Lakers. I remember, I'm aging myself, when Magic Johnson and Julius Erving played that in the finals. So that's what I think the finals are going to be. And it's going to be tough to beat the Lakers.
That's beating LeBron it's a difficult task that nobody's really ever figured out how to do. Unless you have a crazy good team around you. Yeah. So unless your name is Dirk. Never mind. That's one guy figured it out. That was Dirk. So Dirk signed with the Suns, and maybe they can get out of the first round. Let's see here. Let's see. There's so many questions. Here's one. This one's interesting. Hot take: Orlando Brown will be the biggest disappointment of the season. I don't disagree, but I don't agree with this. I think people heavily overrate Orlando Brown Jr. I think he's great. However, he does have a weakness in that he can't move. Like, he's not mobile at all. Greg Roman had to scheme around that. He couldn't get him out into space. So seeing the offense, the defensive edge rushers that they have in that division, from Joey Bosa to Von Miller to Bradley Chubb to, I know the Raiders have signed somebody. I know they have Max Crosby. I think they signed somebody else. They signed Trey Hendrickson, or was that the Bengals? I can't remember. Offseason was so long ago, even though it's still offseason. But I don't disagree with that. I think people will be a little bit disappointed because I think they'll be expecting like some perfectly all-around player, because honestly, as Ravens fans, and especially Ravens fans on Twitter, they hype up every player that we have as like the greatest of all time. So that's what they're going to expect. But I think it could be a disappointment. I don't think he will be maybe not the biggest though. But what do you guys think about that? Yeah. Yeah, but how did he do in the draft week at the combine? That was his worst performance of probably his life of any athletic ability was when he needed it most.
Man.
So,
and something you should notice that if a player flops in this team but excels in this team, is because he doesn't fit the scheme. I mean, that's why that is happening. Something, for example, to the guys that came from New England have very good performance, and they sign big contracts in other teams. They flop because because it's all about the scheme fit, how the coaches are able to make them scheme fit, play to their strengths.
Yeah,
it really can go one of two ways. I mean, but me personally, I feel like he's not. I don't feel like he's going to upgrade from what he did last year. Now, if he's been working out in this past offseason, then yes, with this being his contract year and everything, him wanting to be a solidified left tackle for years to come, he want to live out the dream that his father had set out for him. Then I definitely feel like we could see a more improved Orlando Brown Jr. But with the whole, I'm so torn because how he went about it, with the whole drama in the offseason. So I'm kind of 50-50. I think he can do it, but the thing is, we won't know until week one.
Yeah.
I'm going to say something that may sound weird, but I think the player that made, and this is, people are listening, and you all might think this is bizarre, but I'm going to say something. If you analyze the highlight reel, a lot of the game film, who made him what he was? I know Roman's not a hero, but I'm going to go one step further. Lamar Jackson.
Yeah.
Lamar Jackson's ability could make anybody, even me, look good. Okay. Will Mahomes be able to do the same? I don't think Mahomes has the scrambling ability that Lamar Jackson and the improvising ability that Lamar has. Lamar goes back there, and all of a sudden, oh my God, he's going to get sacked. How'd he get away? Right?
Yeah.
And that's something that I don't believe I would give Lamar a 10 in that range. And Mahomes, Chief fans may hate me. That's fine. I don't really care. I've never been a Chief fan, even with Len Dawson as their quarterback. And I'm aging myself. But I'd give him an 8 for scrambling. Lamar Jackson can make any offensive lineman look good. If Orlando Brown allows his quarterback Mahomes to get hammered, it's all going to fall apart. So I'm going to give him a B and say he'll get a B rating this year. But the pressure is going to be phenomenal on him. It wouldn't be the same if he was in Baltimore, guaranteed. Because if he allows Mahomes to get sacked, Katie bar the door, the horses are in the barn, Mahomes ain't going to be a happy camper.
Yeah,
True.
and that's what makes sense with Lamar Jackson. I mean, you watch Ravens games, and if Lamar gets sacked, it's never off the edge. It's always either the guard or the center getting beat, because anytime a player gets around Orlando Brown Jr. or Ronnie Stanley or last year Tyree Phillips, Lamar just runs to the opposite side. He's faster than any edge rusher that you put out on the field, and he's going to get away from them. So when you put Patrick Mahomes back there, Orlando Brown Jr. gets beat. You see the statistic and it's like, allowed very few quarterback hits and no sacks, but that's completely skewed by Lamar's ability to avoid all the sacks from the edge. And that's, why Lamar is so great, is that he takes that away. If you have an edge rusher, Lamar can take away that edge rusher, and you have to have interior defensive line. I saw another question. I got to scroll up and find it. This is from Slim Jimmy. He says, "What up, guys? Y'all mess with undrafted free agent Tony Poljan. If y'all don't know, he's the tight end out of Virginia. I believe a former quarterback. I think he's 6'8" off the top of my head. And then he also said, I think he's a lock for the third tight end position. In my opinion, definitely not a lock. Y'all are forgetting about the weapon, Josh Oliver, hyping this man up since we traded that amazing 7th round conditional pick to Jacksonville. But also, we drafted Ben Mason as well, who could, in theory, just be set in that tight end, because we're not going to list him as a fullback, I don't think. We're not going to list 2 fullbacks on the roster. And even if we do, he'll be playing in the tight end spot. Patrick Ricard last year played in the tight end spot a fair amount. It's just, he's listed as a fullback because that's what he also plays. But I think Ben Mason is probably going to be the guy that takes that tight end 3 spot, even if it's not listed on the roster. Like, he'll be the tight end that's out there because he's a good hybrid. He can catch the football and he can rush the ball. He can block, and he's good after the catch. So I like Poljan. Ravens are very good with tight ends, especially guys with less experience in being a former quarterback. But in my opinion, it's going to be tough just because we got Ben Mason, we got the weapon Josh Oliver, and then we also got plenty of other guys on the practice squad. There's like 7 guys probably vying for that spot. So if Poljan gets it, good for him. But I think it's less than likely that he gets it. But that's just me.
Well, I'll say this. Tebow now is number 85 for the Jacksonville Jaguars. He got his 1-year contract. So I don't know if the weapon gets that third roster spot as a tight end, for the simple fact that Tebow's going to be a starter for the Jacksonville Jaguars. But I will say this, just like the wide receiver room, we do have a big tight end room. From Eli Wolf, Breland, Nick Bull, Mark Andrews, Tomlinson, Tony. It's so many guys you can name. It's just, you can never have too much. Do I feel like Tony is a lock? No, I do not. But he did. I do congratulate that young man on making the transition over to tight end in the early stages of his career. He definitely showed flashes at UVA. I definitely feel like he can be, a good addition to any team. Hopefully, he outworks everyone else to make it. But, to McConnell's point, we do have a hybrid in Ben Mason. Who knows? He may be our next Kyle Juszczyk. I miss those days. Where Kyle Juszczyk used to make things happen out of the backfield, and also even in the flats and stuff like that. So, I'm definitely looking forward to see what's to happen with that tight end battle.
Absolutely. Anybody have anything else? Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Another weird. What about, since he's a quarterback, right? Remember, oh gosh, was it the 90s or something? There was a quarterback named Slash, Cordell Stewart.
Oh, Cordell Stewart, the ultimate hybrid.
Yes. I know this is bizarre, okay? But we have the Ravens have these incredible defensive packages, right? I forget the name they call it, gourmet or whatever they call it. Wouldn't that be something if this guy could play tight end and you have him pull back from the line of scrimmage? Lamar throws him a tight end screen and he chucks a touchdown pass to Julio Jones or whomever. Think about that. No, that's just the pipe dream. Yeah. No, that was just get people intrigued. I would hang on to him for a while. He got some injuries at the tight end position. We don't know what they're going to do. And you don't know what the quarterback situation is going to be after Lamar. So this may be somebody that may be an ace in the hole that you hold on to and have in multiple positions. And let me tell you, that may not be a bad idea. If Greg Roman would open up the offense and get creative, think about that. A 6'8" guy who can throw a pass. Or you do a double reverse and he can throw a pass too,
Yeah.
So he wants to get the head coaching job. He must be creative, and this is his year to prove he can be creative, and so he can get his head coaching job that he wants.
And if he isn't creative, he's probably going to get fired. So he's either going to get a promotion or get fired at the end of the year.
And Tim Martin, and I feel that Tim Martin could be the offensive coordinator. He is the guy that has experience with that in USC.
Absolutely.
I like the way you thinking, baby. I like the way you thinking.
Absolutely.
It's information and experience.
Let's see here. I see a question. I think it's a bit interesting. It says, would you rather trade for Danielle Hunter or sign Justin Houston? Danielle Hunter he's maybe the most underrated pass rusher in the NFL. He's probably, until Odafe Owe was drafted, he's probably the fastest edge rusher in the NFL. The issue is the Vikings really like Danielle Hunter, and I don't think it's likely that they would be willing to trade him. It's not a situation like the Falcons are in with Julio, where it's like they have to trade him. Danielle Hunter's value would, my opinion, maybe be a first-round pick or like 2 second-round picks, and that would be a lot for me to trade for a guy that I don't even know his contract value. I think he's making good money. I would rather get Houston. But like Danielle Hunter is the far and away better player. It's just the price of the draft picks would be a lot, in my opinion, or we may have to trade players. And I really like the core of this team, and just signing a guy like Houston could be able to get it done. But for me, that's a Houston. But just like if somehow we got him, it would be amazing. I just don't think it's very likely.
I have to agree with you on this point because the problem with the when it comes to pass rush is the outside pressure, not the interior pressure. We already have a good interior pressure with Calais Campbell, Brandon Williams, and between Derek Wolfe and Justin Madibute. The problem is in the outside. We drafted Odafe Owe, but who outside of him who is a pure pass rusher? Tyrese Bowser is good in the pass rush, but he's more of a versatile linebacker. and we need someone that
Yeah.
can help Odafe with not only develop but helping when it matters. When he's not able to get to the quarterback or to serve as a distraction, so Odafe always can get to the quarterback.
Yeah.
I'm researching his contract. This is from Courtney Cronin. It says regarding Danielle Hunter's contract restructure, I'm told Vikings converted $8 million of his $10.9 million 2020 cap base salary into a signing bonus. Hunter had a $14.5 million cap hit for 2020. Base salary included partially earned escalator for the 2019 season. So I started the research that I haven't been able to finish that. So that's when was that dated? I can't get the date on that. That was Friday. This is dated Friday, May 21st, 2021. This is from VikingsTerritory.com. So I did a quick research on that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that's correct. He's 6'5" and 252 pounds. That's his bio. He was born October 29, 1994. So that was a quick research. I don't know exactly that, but I would say just like with Julio, how much you going to give?
Yeah, and I think he would cost a lot more than Julio because the Vikings aren't in a situation where they have to trade him. I see a question that's pretty interesting. This may be directed towards someone in the chat. I don't know. I can't keep up. It's going pretty fast. But it asks, you don't think they're going to run Ferguson out there and not sign another veteran pass rusher? Honestly, off of what Wink Martindale was saying, I do think they're going to run Ferguson a lot. He said I think it was the shareholders meeting, like he expects Ferguson to have a big year this year. This is year 3, I believe, maybe year 4. Honestly, it's been a minute.
No, it's 3.
Year 3 for Sack Daddy.
He was a third round pick in 2019.
Yes. Okay. So year 3 for Sack Daddy. He only has 4.5 career sacks in his career, but year 3 is for the Ravens when the edge rushers typically start to see some production. Now, sometimes year 3 pass rushers don't get that production, but a lot of times they do, and then we're able to see that growth. We saw it from Zadarius Smith. We saw it from we saw it a little bit from the old 99. He shall not be named. But the year 3 pass rushers is where they start to kind of take off. And so for me, I think they will. Do I want that to happen? Not really. I'd much rather have them sign a veteran pass rusher. But if it does, the Ravens are confident that he would be able to produce. Am I? Not super, but I think it's a very good possibility that they roll out with Sack Daddy. But what do you guys think about that?
Do you mind if I jump in?
Yeah,
go for it.
I think I commented, it was a couple weeks ago. He's 6'5", 275. Base salary in the year 2020. This is what I'm reading. It was $675,000. So he's cap friendly. I watched some highlights of him against the run on another Baltimore Raven YouTube, and they showed his highlights. This guy's got some awesome technique. I mean, against the run, it was at Cincinnati. He showed highlights, and I can't remember the other team. But this guy he was not out of position. He knew how to get against the run. He was fantastic. I don't know about his sack producing abilities, but on those highlights, he was good. So I think give him a shot.
Yeah, he's a monster against the run. Against the run. Maybe he needs. I wish there was a cool run nickname that we could give him rather than Sack Daddy. But we'll see. And if we put him next to Odafe Oweh, who was graded as the 3rd best run stopping edge defender, that is a good run stopping core. So when we have to play against Chubb and Kareem Hunt and Derrick Henry, and I don't know, those are kind of the only, I guess Najee now. Jonathan Taylor for the Colts. Yeah, that's going to be huge. Having those guys is going to be massive. Oh wow, look at that. Shout out to Skeptic Goat. First ever YouTube donation. Thank you so much, Skeptic. If you guys don't know Skeptic's on Twitter. I talk with him all the time. We have debates about, whether or not the Ravens should draft Travis Etienne and that kind of thing. But he says a great O helps more in the playoffs than a great D. If the other team has the pressure to keep up, scoring wink destroys most teams. Get Julio if possible.
No. I want to say why.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Tadeo.
I want to say why Julio Jones trade will not be a good solution. Number one, because we already have a lot of wide receivers right now, and second, Lamar doesn't need a superstar wide receiver. You need what you need. You saw what happened with Odell Beckham and Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield was forcing the ball to him, and he was not producing very good. And when he was out of the year, he was playing very well. Lamar Jackson needs more of the type of receivers like Akron Baldwin, Jarvis Landry, DJ Moore, Allen Robinson, guys that will not back the ball, but they're very reliable on third downs. And I think Rashad Bateman can be that type of receiver.
Yeah, I mean, whether or not we don't know with Julio whether or not he's a volume guy is kind of the question. Odell Beckham Jr., when he was in New York, was absolutely a volume wide receiver because Eli Manning back then was just, he was Eli Manning. They didn't have a very good offensive scheme, but Julio has shown, I think, that he is not as much of a volume receiver. I mean, they don't give him. I mean, he doesn't score touchdowns because they just don't throw it to him in the red zone. Like that's not what they do in Atlanta. Julio Jones is not as touchdown scorer. Now, he absolutely could be. He's just not forced the ball. So I think that's something that you can look at. But this kind of idea of a great O helping more in the playoffs, it depends, because a great O can absolutely be shut down. Look at Tom Brady. He had maybe the greatest offense the NFL has ever seen. He goes undefeated. He's got Randy Moss, maybe one of the best wide receivers of all time. Definitely not the best. Shout out Jerry Rice. Probably the best quarterback of all time in Tom Brady. You've got, maybe the best coach of all time in Bill Belichick. And they go out there and three guys, Osi Umenyiora, Justin Tuck, and Michael Strahan, ruin their day. Absolutely ruined their day. Same thing happened a few years later. He's playing against Denver. A man named Von Miller came out, ruined Tom Brady's day. What happened to Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs? Jason Pierre-Paul, Shaq Barrett, they got so many edge rushers in Tampa Bay. I can't name them all. They come out there, they ruin Mahomes' day. Having an elite defense will be able. What happened to the greatest scoring offense of all time? I think points wise, the Denver Broncos. They went up against the Legion of Boom. How many points did they score? 7, 10? I can't remember. They got like 50 dropped on them. I'm pretty sure Seattle's defense scored more points than the Denver Broncos offense in that game. Because they had the safety, they had the pick six. They got shut down. I believe going into that game, the statistic was the amount of times that the number one defense has played the number one offense in the Super Bowl. I believe the defense was 4-1 going into that game. Yeah, this is my memory from 8 or 9 years ago. And so obviously the Seahawks won the game. So there was 5-1. The great defense beats the great offense, but you have to have a great defense. You if it's a pretty good offense is better than a pretty good defense, but an all-time great defense is better than an all-time great offense. That would be my take on it.
I'm disappointed in you guys. I really am. How about Trent Dilfer? Okay.
Yes, him too.
Trent Dilfer. What team did he play for?
Baltimore.
Okay.
Now, how much playing did he really do, though? I mean, he was
who knows?
He showed up. He showed up.
Right.
Some stuff. Yeah.
Their defense was, I think, the greatest of all time.
Yeah.
The Steel Curtain, Doomsday, etc. You look at that team. They won a Super Bowl. Defense. And you have it in your own backyard. Take a look at Air Coryell in the 70s with Dan Fouts. I went to law school in San Diego, and I used to live across the stadium, and I watched Air Coryell with Dan Fouts. Then I came to Miami, and I saw Dan Marino. How many Super Bowls did those guys win with those offensive numbers? Is that
Zero.
zero? Because they couldn't stop the other football team. The Ravens won their Super Bowls, except the second one, where in the second half their defense fell apart. But other than when the power failure hit, their defense was a domination of that game. When they won Super Bowls, it was defense because Flacco, and I'll say this again, his numbers should not be retired because Flacco could lead you into the red zone but can never score touchdowns. Or on a few occasions he could,
Yeah. That's a great, obviously, in Baltimore, bring up the 2000 Super Bowl for why defense, is more important. What do you think, Tadeo? What do you have to say?
Honestly, I think you need both a great offense and a great defense because if you don't have both, you can lose the Super Bowl. For example, a horrible offense that went to the Super Bowl, that 2006 Chicago Bears. They have a great defense, but the offense was a mess with Rex Grossman at quarterback.
Yeah,
and they
that's
lost.
true.
And of example, horrible defense but great offenses, the 2013 Broncos and the 2020 Kansas City Chiefs. They have amazing offenses that can score a lot, but the defense was not very good to contain the offenses they are facing.
Yeah, absolutely. Shout out to the Chargers when they had that year where they had the number one offense and the number one defense, but the by far worst special teams in the league did nothing that year. Shout out Phillip Rivers and those guys, but not the special teams group. But it's always an itch. I think it's a matter of philosophy. There's also examples of great offenses going out and winning the Super Bowl, like Patrick. But even when Patrick Mahomes won his Super Bowl, it was the defense. It was the defense getting after Jimmy Garoppolo. I was avidly saying that Chris Jones should have been Super Bowl MVP. Was not Mahomes' award. He did not even really play a good game. He had a good fourth quarter. But Chris Jones ruined Jimmy Garoppolo. Jimmy Garoppolo probably still sees Chris Jones in his nightmares. Because honestly, it ruined his career. He hasn't done anything since. But yeah, I think you can have it both ways. I don't at the same time, like saying like, oh, great out, like get Julio if possible. Yes, I still agree with that. That is not me saying great defense is better, but like still get Julio if possible. That is the main question with Julio. Is it even possible? Can we get the cap to work? Will they accept our trade? Like that's the whole issue.
Let's not forget that we were expected to extend Mark Andrews and Lamar Jackson.
Yes,
that's the thing. I think everybody's forgetting. The great question is Greg Roman going to create a passing game so we can get Julio Jones, but is Julio Jones going to get those catches and yards that he actually needs to help us win those games? So me personally, I'm going with a great defense, and honestly, this year I definitely see us going to the playoffs. But I don't feel like the Julio Jones trade is going to make or break us. I feel like it all comes down to that offensive room with G-Row, T, and Keith. If we develop a passing game, if we develop a balanced offense, that's when opposing team defenses are going to start respecting us because it's not going to be 8-9 people in the box. Shucks. It may be 13, including the ref. So so you have to be mindful of that, y'all. I love the addition of Rashad Bateman. Julio Jones, would that be an awesome upgrade? Next to Sammy Watkins and Marquise Brown and everybody else. Yeah, it would. But we gotta think big picture. Yeah. Are we going to get a passing game? And we won't know that till week 1. So why would I put myself in a dead cat, giving up trade value? Eric DeCosta said it. He loves his picks, things of that nature. So, if it's me personally, I'm gonna ride with the defense all the way to take me to the big dance and bring home that trophy. We done seen it many times with Terrell Suggs, Ed Reed, Ray Lewis bringing out them big plays. Now you got Brandon Williams, Patrick Queen flying around. the smartest linebacker on the team. Don't and quote me on it. Malik Harrison, Marlon Humphrey. You know, you got your two strong safeties in the back. In the back. So, you know, these guys have a camaraderie. It reminds me of that, you know, that high school team that nobody can beat, but they are all 4-star recruits. So I definitely believe this defense, even if we add another veteran piece onto this team, can lead us to a championship.
Yeah, I think, okay, I want to add one thing in just because I always got to do it. Every time somebody says greatest defensive all time, got to put a caveat. You got to say Super Bowl era. Super Bowl era, Ravens, hands down. Yeah. But people need to put some respect on the 1920 Akron Pros, okay? This team allowed 7 points in the entire season. They played 11 games. They had a 13-game consecutive shutout streak, extending into 1921. So I always, every time somebody says great defense of all time, I love to shout out the Akron Pros just because, fun fact, you know, longest streak, shutout streak in history. But, you know, just shout out to them. But, you know, Super Bowl era, it's the Ravens. Skeptic, thank you again, man. Another donation, you know, talking about, you know, I think that's I can't tell what emoji that is. I think it's just like I can't tell if it's laughing or, you know, really happy. But it says the nostalgia is cute, but Dilfer isn't Lamar Jackson, and half the Legion of Boom would be ejected from the game today. Does the Ravens D leave if Julio comes? And yeah, I think that's obviously, you know, Dilfer isn't Lamar. I think the game is different. You know, you look at, you know, who what the offenses are today. You know, I believe last year I was doing research into basically I was comparing the amount of, I think I was comparing the amount of 1,000-yard rushers to from I think it was like 2007, 2005 to today. And it's like, you know, almost half the league back in, you know, early 2000s was a 1,000-yard rusher. There was typically 5 or 6 you know, 1,300, 1,400, 15-yard rushers. We don't see that anymore. We still have the dominant running backs, the Derrick Henrys, the Nick Chubbs, the Christian McCaffreys, the Dalvin Cooks. But like most random guys, I mean, you know, guys like Michael Turner would be toting the rock 400 times in a season. Yep. Just a ton of guys like that. And defense back then, you know, you could focus on that. But I don't think saying that, you know, just because the defense was different back then doesn't mean that the idea can still apply today. And I will say, yes, half the Legion of Boom would be ejected from the game today. There's a reason why we don't have wham bam safeties anymore, like a Cam Chancellor. It's just because the NFL was like, no, we don't like having fun at the safety position. You can't, you know, knock the socks off guys with their shoes staying on anymore. But I think still looking at it, having a great defense is still, you know, you look at what the 49ers were able to do when they went to the Super Bowl. Yeah, they didn't capitalize because they had, you know, Jimmy Garoppolo at quarterback, but they, you know, they went out there and Nick Bosa came out and I think he set the Super Bowl record for amount of pressures. You know, Richard Sherman played very well. Like they were clamping everybody in the playoffs. You know, last year the Steelers, up until I hate to say it, up until they lost Devin Bush and then Bud Dupree, that defense clamped everybody. That defense clamped us. You know, and then everybody's like, oh, they went 11-0, then they kept losing, but like they lost the key players of their defense. I mean, I'm not saying I wasn't happy to see them completely fail after talking all that trash. It was amazing. But overall, I think still the idea that a Ravens like a great defense can still be the leading factor. Now I think Tadeo was right in the fact that I don't think anymore you can just have one. You do have to at least have a competent on, you know, one side of the football. Look at Washington last year. Amazing defense. Really, really bad offense. It got them to the playoffs. That's it. But the Ravens already have the highest scoring offense the last 2 seasons. They already have that. So why not just boost up the defense to play with that? But at the same time, Julio's Julio. Julio would be a bigger addition than any of the players that we could get. Once again, it's just whether or not we can get Julio. That is still the question, which how I brought it up first. How much is it going to cost to get him? How much are we going to have to pay him afterwards? That's the thing. If it costs a 3rd round pick, heck, if we can trade that kicker we signed over to Atlanta for Julio Jones, I'm not counting out EDC because he's pulled some stuff off before. So, all those types of things. How much is it going to cost? Because sacrificing the defense, because this says, like, does the Ravens leave if Julio comes? Right now, no. But if we have to cut somebody to get Julio, like what if we had to cut Calais Campbell? I don't know. Then it becomes a bigger question. So, like, if Julio Jones cost $1 million, yeah, of course you sign him. But it's just about the cost, and we don't know. Julio Jones is a prominent player in the NFL. Every team is looking at trading for him, and we couldn't trade for DeAndre Hopkins and look at how cheap he was. So I don't know. I'm just skeptic. Shouts. Your name's Skeptic. I'm skeptical of whether or not we can get him. If we got him, I'd be jumping up and down. It'd be amazing.
Yes. And also, you need to consider this thing. If you're going to trade for a player that you love, you have to get rid of the players that you feel that they're not living up to the contract, or they are or they are not good for your team. For example, Calais Campbell is a very good when it comes to mentoring the guys and producing. If I were to get rid of someone from the defense, I would say Davon John. He can stay healthy, or maybe Anthony Avery, because honestly, he's in the last year of his contract and he has been average at best. I would rather get rid of 2 bad players than of one instead of one good player.
I think that's fair.
Like I said, what was their passing attack last season? What was their rankings? Will the defense leave? The whole structure is, at this moment, they have holes in their defense by who they lost in free agents, etc. So, like I said, how would they have to give up? What is the contract? This is why if he's the best GM in the league, like I've heard everybody said, we can count on him to do it on all the Baltimore Raven YouTube channels, then he should be able to structure that. Now, remember, they may be able to get Atlanta to pay for some of the deal too.
Yeah.
All right. And think about that one. Now, I think if he's a good GM, he'll be able to pull it off. Will the league approve of it? Well, last year, Jedivon, that deal wasn't allowed to go through, if you remember, with Clowney. So that was stopped. So if they can get him creative and do something where they say, okay, here's the deal. We're going to give you guaranteed. We're going to backload the contract like they did with Roethlisberger in Pittsburgh. If they could structure something like that and then recreate it, then that may not be a bad thing. And I think it also would take the pressure off the defense as well. Because remember, the other team knows, the Ravens have a terrible passing attack. So if we can get 8 in the block, like the Chicago Bears defense, that right there. And if they can, now another thing people don't talk about is the fear of the receivers that the Ravens have right now. Do they put fear in the defensive coordinators' minds? No. That is massive. That's why when they signed Des Bryant, no one feared him on the other team because he hadn't played. So do they fear Julio Jones? If so, then that could open up a lot of the attack too. We don't have a number one receiver yet. Few in the process.
I think that's definitely fair. And I have a question right here. It may have to be the last question. We've been going for about an hour. If I see another one pop up that's really good, we can talk about that too. But this one was just so good. It happened a while ago. This one was from KJ, and he says, if you could bring back a former Ravens player in his prime, who would you pick? I'm picking Suggs because we need pass rush. I will say, no cheesing and saying Deion Sanders or Rod Woodson. I think that's unfair. I want Deion, because he played for the Ravens. We can get him in his prime, but or Rod, play free safety for us. I agree with him. I'm going with Terrell Suggs. I saw a tweet about this a long time ago. This may have been last year, and I said Suggs for the same reason. getting a guy that can rush the passer is really what the Ravens need. And prime Terrell Suggs was a defensive player of the year pass rusher. That's what we need. I mean, that is literally what we need. Is a guy that can go out and rush the passer, and then that would help. I mean, that would help Adafe away. That would help everybody. I mean, but there's plenty of answers that y'all can give. So what do we think? Who wants to go first?
I'll go. KJ, that's a good question, man. There's so many people you can bring back to help us out, man. If we go on defense, man, I'm taking Elvis Dumerville for the simple fact, going for that veteran player. And then if you want to go secondary, if you want to go with the enforcer, I'm going with BP, Bernard Pilot. And then we talking about wide receivers. I'm going Anquan Bolden. Running backs. I'm gonna have to bring the original. I'm gonna bring back the original. I'm bringing Ray Rice back. So yeah.
You're bringing Ray Rice back over Jamal Lewis? Jamal Lewis?
Listen, I love Jamal, but Ray Rice he was a special specimen. He was, he was the big Zeke, or he was the big JK before, they got into the league. He had moves. He was very versatile. He can catch out the backfield. And what was it that got us to the playoffs? Up the middle. So yeah, man, that's some of the guys I definitely want to bring back, man.
Okay. What about you, Tadeo?
Honestly, for me, one of the most underrated Ravens of all time, Matt Burke, the center. Because remember that since he retired, we have a lot of centers. We have from good ones like Ryan Jensen, but he signed with the Bucks. We have Jeremy Suta. Jeremy Suta was good at some point, but we have to move on from him. And then we have the bad one like Gino Grakowski, Matt Skura. Oh no, we don't. Honestly, the center is a very important position because number one, he's the one that needs to tell the guys what they're going to do, and number two, because if he struggles, the other guards will try to help them. And Skura and Gino Grakowski were physically limited because they were undersized, and that forced Marshall Yanda, Kelechi Semele, or whoever it was between them to help them block, and that makes one of the defensive tackles or pass rushers be free and get to the quarterback. I think that if I want to return to the Raven, I will be Matt Burke. But honestly, I would also like Ray Lewis or Derek Mason because Derek Mason will be a great mentor to someone like Rashad Bateman and Marcus Brown.
Surprised it took that long to get Ray Lewis's name brought up, but yeah.
I was going to bring you stole my thunder. I was going to say Ray Lewis. He in his prime, he was a modern day in his prime, Dick Butkus, Ray Nitschke, Jack Lambert. And when he brought to the table an intensity level, I think maybe you guys can correct me, but he was introduced. This is why I had the utmost respect for him. He was introduced with all the other players. I think it was the Super Bowl, the Seattle Seahawks versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. And he came out, and you can see he was angry. He was ticked that the Steelers were there, and he wasn't. And right then and there, I don't think that those losses where they lost leads, if he were on the team, they would have happened. You talked about the Steelers and the Ravens, the first game. Ravens were beating them, and they blew a lead. I don't think with his intensity he would have allowed that team to lose that football game, especially at home.
Yeah, I'm going to change my answer to Ray Lewis, from Terrell Suggs, just because I feel like in addition to the intensity, I feel like this team is still lacking leadership. I love Lamar. I think Lamar, though, he's not a vocal leader. He's a lead by example, which obviously can work, but you got to have a vocal leader on your team. Yeah. And Ray Lewis, I think he's the greatest vocal leader in the history of football. Maybe in the history of all sports. I mean, it would be tough to top Ray Lewis. Maybe you can match him, but it would be tough to top. And that type of thing, bringing that to the defense, to be able to fire up people. We don't have that intensity. We don't have anybody that makes I don't say like anybody that can consistently make just truly game-changing plays that like create a pop. Because Marlon Humphrey, I love the punch. The punch is great, but it's quiet. The ball just kind of slides out, and then people are like, "Oh yeah, football. It's great." But when Ray Lewis forces a fumble, he hits you so loud, everybody in the stadium hears your bones crack, and that gives you some energy. We don't have anybody where we have Ocho Cinco trying to block us, with a cheap blindside block and still leveling them.
Well,
My favorite Ray Lewis play ever was the Chris McAllister field goal return for a touchdown, where Ray Lewis on a field goal at the end of a half is playing his hardest football ever and sprinting fully back and just absolutely annihilates the guy. Like, nobody puts in as much energy as Ray Lewis on that defensive side. Like, he played in the Super Bowl with a torn tricep, which, of course he didn't tell anybody about till after because he wouldn't have been able to play. But like, that's the type of thing Ray Lewis brings. And I want to twist this question as well, just because I think it'd be funny. What would be the player that you absolutely wouldn't bring back? Who would you be like, dude? Yeah, I thought, because I was like, what if I said Rashawn Perriman? Rashawn Perriman, is that your guy? Who would you not want? Like, do not put this guy on our team. Like, we cannot have this guy.
Lee Evans.
Matt Elam, Gino Grakowski, Matt Elam, Kai Voller, Billy Condon.
Matt Skura from
of
last
course.
year.
I would rather have a very good player, but that has a questionable behavior, than someone that has a very good behavior, but is very incompetent to play. Because the behavior, you can fix it. The incompetency, you can't.
That's true. Let's see here. I'll see if there's any other good questions in here. Let's see. There's so many questions.
Also, I know we were talking about, one of the greatest that would play and one of the greatest to go down in history as a linebacker. But we do have to remember that we do play in the Cupcake League. It is 7-on-7 flag football with pads on. So
unfortunately, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would love to hit them. I would love those hits. I would love the boom, but we gotta be mindful for people in their careers. I get it.
Man, I hate the rules. Like, the rules are so annoying. Like, I get it. You want to keep them safe, but man, to get a blindside block, nowadays,
who used to live?
Do it.
Who used to live for blindside blocks? That wasn't on our team.
I mean, that was, Mike Wallace. I'm sorry, not Mike Wallace. I said the wrong Pittsburgh Steeler wide receiver. Wines Hard. That's the guy.
Yeah, Mr. Smile in your face.
Hines Ward.
Game.
Yes.
Crack back.
The only Raven I wouldn't bring back is Elvis Gerback.
They did Trent Dilfer wrong. So, Skeptic, I also wanted to make a comment about that too, because you said Trent Dilfer is not a Lamar Jackson. Trent Dilfer, as far as athleticism, no, he is not Lamar Jackson. But
that's a great assumption, Joshua. Thank you for the clarification.
As far as leadership, as far as being that guy that people want to play for, he is Lamar Jackson in that type of way. Sam Adams said it himself that he wanted, Trent Dilfer to get a fair chance that following year to play for them that full season, because they felt in their hearts that was their quarterback. That was their guy that they wanted to play for, and that's who they want to lead them all the way. So that's all I want to say about that one, Skeptic. Love you, man. Appreciate you.
That was right.
Yeah, I feel like that's a pretty good spot to wrap it up. So thank you everybody for joining the stream, the first ever live with the viewers. Howard, Tadeo, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Being the first viewers in the live with the viewers. I believe the plan right now is to do this every weekend during the off season, because there isn't a lot of content. So at least have fun with everybody, talk about random stuff. Have fun. So I don't know if, I don't think I'll try and have it be around 3 p.m. Saturdays, Eastern time, but I'll let everybody know. on my Twitter typically is when I do it, but I'll let people know in the videos. So, and I think I like having the 2 people on. I think it's a really good balance. I think it's the right amount of people. So each time I think we're going to try and have 2 people join the stream. So if y'all want to join the stream, I'll talk about it in the videos. I'll tweet it out. And we'll be able to get that going so you guys can join. It's a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun. So thank you everybody once again for coming into the stream. Thank you everybody for just overall the support on the channel. It's been amazing this off season. You know, started the channel only, I don't know, like 4 months ago. So thank you so much everybody. And you know, subscribe for daily Ravens content. And I'll see all of you again tomorrow. But thank you all again so much.
Thank you again. God bless you all.